ask for you to stand for the pledge, please. Would one of our students like to lead the pledge? Yes. Thank you. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you. We have a report out of closed session. The board voted 401 to readmit a student from suspended expulsion. And that student, it's number 2022-23-001. We need to adopt our agenda. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
Just a minor edit to the minutes that had already been reflected in the agenda, as well as just a minor edit to one of the agenda items that had the prices in there, but when we had any consent, so we just changed the title a little bit.
Have a motion, please, to approve our agenda.
Moved.
Was there a second? All in favor? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries 401. We have public comment on non-agenda items tonight.
We have one comment card received. Should I call him to the podium, President Vickers?
Yes, please.
Okay, Steve Brown, come on up.
Welcome back, everyone. This will be short. I know you're, hopefully you enjoyed your summer. I just wanted to thank you for what you do. I know I keep saying that every time, but again, it is very important. I know you're considering a lot of things and appreciate that from the community standpoint. We have been trying to assist as we move along as Sensible Laguna. We continue to look far and wide, but we haven't yet been able to find any data to support a pool anywhere near a 50-meter. So I know that we're still working on that and you guys are pulling additional data. We looked at this from a lot of different angles. We started with about 100 professional feasibility studies, dug into those, applied many of the same methods that those folks used to try to see where things sort of shook out. And we can't get anywhere near it. We also then for many months now, we've been collecting observable data on pool usage. We've been walking down there and checking it out and documenting that. So hopefully we can get you some information on that. We also looking at neighboring similar communities by size and structure. They seem to be bouncing somewhere in that 35 to 40 kind of range, but we can share that information as well. And then finally, we look closely at city data and also those schedules that we're able to pull down and that have been provided through other methods. We also looked at school usage. And again, we just can't get anywhere close to that. We know the facilities team is working to gather more data. And we know we're all looking forward to seeing that. I think that will be very helpful. And finally, just something to know as the wheels continues to turn here on this project. The school currently doesn't use the pool Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So that's about over 40% of the time. You do have community swimmers in there, but it's pretty light. So there's a lot of existing capacity in the current pool. So just something as we look at that to think about. Data obviously is crucial to everything we're trying to do. Ending up with the right answer is key. So I'm looking forward to seeing more as you continue to consider this. I left you with extra time.
Thank you. Are there any other cards?
Any other speakers, public comment? No. Okay. That's
Thank
it.
you. We have reports this evening. I see that our bargaining units are not here and our SRO is also not here. Right. I would like that. Welcome to our student reps and you tell us something about yourselves. Be great.
All right, I think this is working. Hello, I'm Chase Benson. I'm going to be a senior this year, and I'm looking forward to a great 23-24 school year.
Hi, my name is Carter McKenzie. I'm going to be a junior this year, and I'm just excited to, provide student voices to the board and provide the student perspective. Something about me is I play on the water polo team, so I'm really interested about the new pool and how we can work to get that to accommodate for everyone.
Thank you. And one of you is voting this evening?
I will.
Thank you. It's your turn.
All right, I'll keep it short. First, welcome to Carter and Chase. As you all know, it's very, very busy right now. We're getting ready for school to start. Wrapping up all the facilities work. Ready or not, the kids come, so we have to be ready. There's no option. So I just want to say a special thanks to our custodial staff. Our school sites look amazing, and I know they've been working really, really hard to get them ready for our students and staff. A special thanks to Jen for covering tonight, and Victoria as well, and Brenda. They do a fantastic job really organizing all of the things that we have going on next week for staff, and it is a huge lift, and just appreciate all of their work and dedication. And lastly, but not least, sad note, Mary Schoenfeld, who used to work on our front office. She was supported technology department as well as actually helped put together the board agenda books. She retired several years ago from the district, and she passed away a few weeks ago. So our thoughts are with her and her family. She was a fantastic woman, and I'll share her obituary, but she worked for, Air Force and also Army. She had done a lot in her life. And as Mike Morrison can attest, she was a detail-oriented person, and she caught everything if there was a mistake. So we really missed her, and again, our thoughts and prayers with her family. So.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon.
Thank you, and welcome Chase and Carter. Good to have you here. Hope it's going to be a great year. So we're looking forward to it also. With regards to our facilities master plan, we are working hard, as Mr. Brown mentioned, to gather data related, and not even necessarily data, but program out what a 40 and 50 meter pool would look like and what different benefits or options are provided with each. We're also looking to do that with our city staff. So we put the same request in for the city programming. Obviously, we can't speak to their programs as well as they can, so we'll rely on what they give us, but ours is fairly straightforward, especially with our coaches and the needs that they've expressed. We're looking forward to presenting this information at the September 28th study session. And we did meet with Steve and Gary from Sensible Laguna last week, and we plan on continuing those meetings as we approach that time so that we can make sure we come in together with an angle and perception of the information that's presented. That's very understandable for everyone. And then after that study session on September 28th, we're planning to wrap up the rest of the master plan shortly after on October 12th. So we'll have all the rest of the plan finalized and brought for your consideration and review at that time as well. And we're looking forward to it. And I just echo what Dr. Valoria said, a special thanks to all of our facilities team. Sites, as usual, look great and really appreciate all the work they do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Conlon.
Yes, thank you, President Vickers. I'll ditto Carter and Chase. Welcome. Good to see you. It's been a few years since you're being a fifth grader at top of the world. So good to see some familiar faces over there. So yes, we did hold our staff institute today, our new staff institute, to introduce new employees to LBUSD with presentations from instructional services, tech, HR, and the superintendent's office. This is our second year of doing our new employee orientation like this to include all the departments instead of just an orientation from human resources. We also invited the site admin to join the new employees for lunch. So it was a day full of new learning, and the room had a great energy as we welcomed them to the LBUSD family. And then as Dr. Gloria stated, where final preparations are underway for our welcome back breakfast and staff PJ on the 22nd. And yes, definitely special thanks goes out to Jen and Brenda and Victoria for all the work they're doing and behind the scenes to get that going. And we're also in the process of completing the final onboarding steps for the remaining positions we're filling as the school year approaches. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Mayberry.
Thank you. Good evening. Yeah, just echo what they said about all the prep going into next week. Mike Morrison and I had a good time today with our new staff, working on instructional strategies, just talking through our approach to a very student-centered approach, student-centered learning approach. As you know, we've also been having the Wave Rider days, the Breaker days. Kids are getting back on campus. That's been really exciting. You can just feel the energy during those times. Kids are excited to get back. So we're excited to have them back. Summers are a nice break, but if you've been an educator or a teacher, we miss them when it gets to August. And so this is an exciting time. And then lastly, just wanted to thank the board for for their support for our Orton Gillingham training, which is this week. You approved that in the spring. We had a little bit over 30 participants in that between teachers and instructional aides. That's ongoing this week. It's pretty intensive training, 5 days, 7 hours a day, in a class, working through different strategies and practices. So we're excited to have our staff trained up for that as right before the school year starts, and that will continue on. I'll have more opportunities during the school year as well as hopefully next summer to continue to keep the staff up to date on the most recent reading strategies and practices. Thank you.
Thank you. We move to our first action item under Human Resources, 7A, approval of resolution number 23-09, assignment of instructional coaches per California Title V 80020.4. Do we have any speakers for this item?
No.
Thank you. Do we have any board questions on this item? Then I'd ask for a motion, please. Oh, go ahead. Do you have a question?
Is somebody presenting?
Is it being presented? It's great, yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I have an introduction plan. So this is our annual resolution that acts as a district's verification and board approval for the teachers serving as staff developers for specific subject matters. The list of employees all serve in their respective roles on a full-time basis to support our classroom teachers and provide supplemental instruction for students, and the district is confident they have the subject matter expertise to perform their duties. We ask that the board approves resolution 23-09, assignment of instructional coaches per California Title V 80020.4 to serve as staff developers. Any questions?
I do. As part of the resolution, it says a teacher serving as a staff developer for a specific subject matter must have his or her expertise in the subject verified and approved by the local governing board. I don't remember seeing evidence of their expertise in these areas. Did I miss that?
So the district verifies their expertise and then brings this to the board for approval of the resolution.
But I think to approve their expertise, we should be able to see what their expertise is and experience is.
For me, if the recommendation from the Human Resources is that they have verified that they have expertise to assume that position, I mean, how would I judge that? That's their field of expertise in Human Resources. I don't believe that they would recommend to us someone who wasn't qualified.
My biggest concern is really with the new K-5 VAPA person who I think is a wonderful teacher. But I worked with the California group on Proposition 28, and I've worked with them a lot, and I'm working with some other art groups. And we spoke about our district needs, and I boasted about our K-5 new VAPA last year and what a great job she was doing, our music program and our collaboration with the art museum. But we were missing dance, spoken word, and some drama, as well as more contemporary forms of creative expression, including filmmaking, animation, graphic design. But we're very lucky in our town that we have so many experts. We have LCAD students here that perhaps we can partner with. And we have world-class dance instructors here and actors and spoken word artists. The funding includes partnership funding, so we could include other guest artists and pay them well. We want to set an example for our students on artists' worth and not expect volunteers. This would also be fabulous in our goals for career readiness, exposing young people to many different careers in the arts with enthusiastic experts. Also, the proposition specifically did not want Sacramento bureaucrats or school district administrators making the decisions, that the decision should come from the individual schools about how the fund should be spent. So if we're hiring a VAPA for El Moro, the school staff, the students, the principal, parents, and the community should be deciding and having options about how this money should be spent. Now, if we're spending $120,000 a year to $130,000 a year on a VAPA, is that the best use? Would we be better off to have many partners in our community exposing our students to all kinds of the arts for maybe 2 weeks at a time and paying them well? So are we following what Proposition 28 says? Did we include, who all did we include in this decision?
This item is about the qualifications of hiring the person. I can add, reshare the stuff that we've done previously regarding Prop 28 and the work we've done with that. And I just respectfully would like to highlight the work we actually have done in graphic arts and graphic design and dance. And that's what was shared last year at the board meeting. So I'm happy to share that with you again, because those are things I don't want our staff to feel like they're not doing these things. And that this is something that's not happening at all. Like, we always have areas of growth that we're trying to improve. But I'm happy to share that with you again, so you can see that, the work that they are doing in that area. But I want to make sure for this item, it is just about whether we've recognized this person's qualified for that position. And I think through the interview process, we all agree that this person's qualified to be successful for this position.
So we were kind of in agreement that what we needed.
Point of order from Member Osborne.
Just, President Vickers, would you like me to make a motion so we can be in discussion?
Yeah, I
Because
didn't
we've
want to
gone-
interrupt Member Perry. She was on a roll there, but it was verging between not being a question anymore, but being what we would have as discussion, which requires a motion second first.
Is that
So
okay?
yes,
Okay, so
are you
I'll
moving?
move the agenda items.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're in discussion in case we want to comment on something you're saying. Okay, great.
So a question is, we hired a VAPA for El Moro, and maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't look to me like we followed the state guidelines. Can you explain that?
I mean, from the lens of that, the school site principal needs to be part of the process in designing and making the decision. They were, and members from Memorial, that we had those as part of the process.
Being on this committee, I know the school site principal should be involved, that there should be a bigger involvement from staff, students, families, and the community, and different options should be looked at and given.
I can assure you that because I'm on some of those committees too. I work with the Orange County Department of Ed arts programs. I work with that team very closely. And I can share, we've meet with them to talk through the progress we're making on those. We actually still have funds related to that at the middle and high school that we haven't expended. This is one that we had something that was working at the elementary level. And so in talking to our different stakeholder groups, the principals are the ones who are supposed to be, the Prop 28 was set up for principals and schools to make their own plans. In this case, this was what they saw was working, and they wanted to continue that. Even when they were talking to their stakeholders, they were excited about the work that the current one had done and how do we expand that. So it does include more performing arts, as well as expanding some of the areas of visual arts that we had not done. But I can assure you that we are meeting Prop 28.
Well, my understanding from the grassroots was that principals would be involved, but there would be much more participation from students and families about what they felt the needs were and what they wanted. And the students I spoke to and parents I spoke to in my neighborhood did not feel like they were involved, but maybe there were other ones involved. Maybe you did have a big committee. But my job is to report back to them about how we came up with this.
So this is kind of blurring between what is this agenda item about versus the hiring practices of a TOSA. So so I think we can definitely share in a weekly the process used for hiring the TOSA, but I just want to kind of keep our focus on the purpose of this agenda item, which was the resolution.
But part of what we're being asked to vote on is this resolution. And to me, it says that we have looked at their expertise. So I was looking for somebody who had expertise in spoken word and media graphics and a lot of things. And I'd just like to see that.
So, I mean, I think there's a couple of things going on here. Let me just try to unpack it for myself. So thank you for your questions. Those are good questions and helpful. The first thing is, for me, separating out our role on the board in terms of hiring. I don't see it. let me get to that one last. It seems to me that you're asking a set of questions about what the role is supposed to fulfill and whether or not there are a range of possibilities in the arts that we should be exploring at the elementary level that we're not. So that's question one. Question two is the district in terms of their work with the schools have designated a teacher who can do this. And, you know, has been designated for this role. I do not see it as my job on the board to question the administration about whether or not someone has expertise. That's a level of hiring that I think has to do with the day-to-day actions of human resources that I don't think that I'm qualified to do from where I sit. I would not try to rejudge the expertise of the administration in doing that. But that doesn't mean that you're not asking important questions about whether or not there's more that we can do in terms of the scope of that position. But I think that's a separate question of whether or not we want to approve the decision that our administrators have made about particular teachers who they believe can and are fulfilling the role. So I think both things are important and correct.
I see what you're saying, and I'm not questioning all of them. I'm questioning the decision about the VAPA, and I do know a lot about that. I'm not questioning all the others.
No, I know, but it's still a question about a judgment about someone's resume that I completely trust the administration to do that. But I think you're still asking good questions about whether or not in that role, we could be expanding some of the programs that we're doing at the elementary level. So what are ways that we could add dance, or what are ways? I think that's a separate set of questions, given the resolution that's before us in our role.
And then
Okay, go ahead.
I also am looking at this resolution, specifically what we're being asked to approve. And it talks about being good staff developers. I view the role as a TOSA as being good staff developers, not always the expert, but having enough rapport and enough experience and enough relationships, enough maturity, respect. There's a lot of things that go into being a really astute trainer or somebody that can go into a lot of different classrooms. And I think to your point, because we have such a rich arts community, this person also needs to be really dynamic in making those relationships. So in some ways, if we just looked at the VAPA piece and we were on a different item where we were talking about the job description of the VAPA, somebody that has some of these characteristics of being a very strong staff developer and being a real go-getter that can go out and connect with all of these organizations, not do it all themselves, I think is in essence what we would hope our head of HR would pick. So I have no issues with verifying that these people are highly qualified and you know are the right people to do these roles.
And the other part of the question, another question for me is the amount of money that we are spending on VAPAs, could it be better spent in another way?
I don't have any issue if there's other arts contracts that that instructional services wants to bring to us for other outside services. I have no problem as a board member looking at future arts related contracts. I know we still have lots of independent contractors and other arts organizations with LAM, with maybe still with Art Masters, with professional experts at the secondary level. So I always support looking at those and sizing them up.
Yeah, I mean, I want to add my support for your interest in expanding the scope of what we do in terms of the arts. I think particularly at the elementary school, that's fantastic. I do think it's separate from what we're voting on here, though. So I think both points are important.
I think we have seen from the reports that we've received in the past that we have utilized a lot of the community expertise. That comes on a volunteer basis, but the links with LCAD, the links with the Art Museum, and even individual people that come in that our staff members know about or that parents bring to their attention or the parents themselves. I've been aware of it over many years. So I think we have utilized that, and that would not be like a paid position. That's just utilizing what we have in our community that's available. And entering students in contests, broadening their scope of what's available. But I, again, will say what I said at the start. When our staff brings a recommendation and it says to verify the expertise, I believe that they have verified that themselves. That's as Member Malczewski said, it's not my role to personally verify that because I wouldn't know, in a sense, all of the myriad details that I would need to access to make that. That's their job.
I did, Mike. We do have principal support on this. Back to the Prop 28 funding was pretty clear that there's a principal. It was an odd direction to go with this funding in this bill, but this is something that the principal at this site
Yeah,
supports.
this was one of their first ideas when we were doing planning sessions, I don't know, 6-7 months ago. We looked at other options and they talked to other people and different stakeholder groups. And a lot of the stuff that you're discussing, like we shared in that presentation when Ms. Mosley was here, and we talked about the different components of the visual performing arts standards and how we address some of them, and some we're doing a lot of and some we're not doing as much and we want to do more of, and how that balances at the elementary schedule. And I'm happy to, that was been a while ago. I think that we might have done that late fall last year. So I'm happy to share that again, but it will show, hopefully that will show, like, here are the things we are doing. Here are some things we want to expand on, right? And some of that is, there's only so many hours in the day, right? So if we're going to expand one area, what do we want to remove? And then also, what do those opportunities look like? Are they after school? Are they during the day? All those things that we weigh when we're making decisions around visual performing arts programs, right? It's hard to just add anything. And if you talk to our teachers, they would agree, like they want to find more time for math. And so we look at all those different things and different complexities. And see us here, we've brought in Laguna Art Museum, we've brought in different partners. We love working with our local partners on all this. That's the beauty of working in this community, right? It's a very arts focused community in all areas. So we're very fortunate and we want to use those partners. And so all the things you're saying, we are in support of, and that's what we're constantly working towards, is to give these kids that opportunity to experience and expose them to the arts, but then also grow their passions, because we know that the impact it has can be so long lasting and so impactful for so many kids.
And I think just like I said, we're happy to share more of that, but again, I'm trying to get us back onto this agenda item, which was just to verify that and get your approval that they're
Exactly.
appropriate staff developers.
And just from the people I've talked with, they thought the art program last year was great at both schools. And even though it was only part-time at each school, what they would like to see now are all these other areas of the arts incorporated. So I'm trusting that that's what's going to happen, not more visual arts.
Well,
And I think just if you look at the actual resolution, it actually states all the board is doing is approving them as staff developers. This is not them providing direct teaching. You're not approving that. You're approving them as a person who's capable of providing staff development. So that's a segment of their job. The Commission on Teacher Credentialing and the state doesn't look at it any different. So if their full job is instructional coaching, or if a portion of what they're doing is instructional coaching, which is what a portion of their job is, we have to get the approval from the board, essentially. So what we're saying is we're verifying they are subject matter competent, which is, in this case, they're providing direct service to elementary school teachers specific to coaching. So that's what we're asking the board to approve tonight, is this resolution that states that these folks are able to provide that staff development. In regards to the other questions, that those are not related to the specific item, and obviously we can address those at a future time.
From my understanding, the state is looking for somebody with a credential, and in this case for Atosa, also able to do staff development, but also have a lot of expertise in the area we're asking for. And that's the part I was questioning.
I don't see that in the regulation where it says that. It says that we verified their subject matter competency. That's Human Resources Department. We work with the teachers, the principals of the school site, and we went through a hiring process. So we have a process to identify what is the need. And so what we're verifying is their ability to provide that staff development. So,
And this is separate from Prop 28. This is strictly a resolution.
Okay, so if no funds from Prop 28 are being used for this, then that's a different story.
Well, I'm not speaking to.
So we
I-
can use
well,
those funds to do
Just
other things.
one moment, I'm sorry. I'm not confirming or denying what the funding source is for some of the VEPTOs. I'm saying for this specific resolution. It's strictly the board, verifying that these individuals are appropriate for being staff developers. It's nothing, again, this is driven by the CTC and from a credentialing situation, has nothing to do with the Prop 28 funding. Nothing around the backing or the rationale as to why we have to bring this resolution forward.
And just to clarify, for the budget purposes, the approved budget, the adopted budget doesn't allocate Prop 28 funds to anything yet. So that's still, even though we know we're getting those funds, we haven't received them, we haven't allocated it.
And
One more.
when,
Oh,
oh,
sorry.
sorry.
This is an annual resolution that we approve. And so, Member Perry, maybe one way to think of it is if for some reason, and I would say the same with math intervention or technology intervention, if at some point over the year, we thought that they really lacked the subject matter expertise, maybe somebody had a great resume that showed they had really strong math skills, but they didn't turn out, that those are also, things that can be dealt with when we come to approve this next year. We approve it every year.
But again, to Member Machewski's point, I don't think that we would be making that determination. That would come from site principals, from evaluation of the person fulfilling that position.
That's correct.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Ready to vote? And ask for student vote? Thank you. Board members, all in favor? Aye. Is it a roll call? I couldn't see it. I just saw that said the ayes here. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it wasn't. We move to item 8, action item instruction. Do we have any comments on this item?
None received?
Okay. Who is presenting this? Jeff? Chad. Okay, Dr. Mayberry.
Thank you. Yeah, we're bringing for this proposed contract to work with Learner Center Collaborative to do more research on how the best ways that we can and can support our high achieving students. Periodically in this district, where we'll do different projects related to certain groups of students that we maybe want to help more, or we have an area of like wanting to confirm things we're doing or improve. I think most recently we did a lot of research and focus groups around MTSS and our intervention programs, what was working, doing direct interviews and focus groups with students that were in those programs. So this one that we were interested in doing, it would include interviews and surveys and focus groups for students that would be defined as high achieving. Some of that would be determined, but typically high achieving is often determined by the courses they take, possibly the GPA, if they were identified at a younger age as GATE qualified. And you look at some of those factors, and then you follow up with interviews and focus groups to see what is working for you. What helps you in your previous years. So this would likely not just include our own students, but I would assume we would likely want to look at some students that are interviewing students that are in college as well, and what's working for them. And then using someone like Learner Center Collaborative, which works with school districts across the country to support them in a variety of ways. Their level of expertise around research. This would allow us to come to some definitive set of recommendations of what's working or what we could potentially do better as we're always trying to continually improve our services to students.
Any questions on this?
Could you explain the empathy interviews a bit more?
Empathy interview just is a set of questions you're asking kids just around how they feel, what impacted them. There's a series of questions that might go into their thinking through their experience, right? And so and it's less about the actual academic piece and much more about how it may have impacted the way they feel or the way it's impacting their actions later on in life, but it's not as quantifiable. So it's likely done in a small focus group. So you're gonna get qualitative data, but if you interview enough students, you can find the trends and make some clear recommendations of what's working or what's not working.
Is there a goal then to develop more empathy, or what's the goal?
The goal for the interviews is just to learn more about how this impacted the students. So empathy is a term that describes the type of questions that are asked, but it's not, we're not providing training, empathy training to these students. It's just the type of interview questions we're asking them. Elicit their feelings of how it makes them feel or how it impacted them, not necessarily academically, but socially. So we can look at a lot of, we'll obviously look at a lot more quantitative data on the academic side, but if you can also look at pieces around the impact that may have had them that's less quantifiable in an empathy interviews, that also allows you to make a more correlated set of recommendations.
Dr. Mayberry, is part of this, this may be a completely separate issue, but is part of this any consideration of how we structure pedagogically programs around high achieving students? So for example, have we ever thought about the current GATE program and whether that's the best way to accommodate high achieving students, or if there's different ways to structure the GATE program, or how students feel about being in GATE or not in GATE?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what will hopefully come out of this, right? What programming structures that may have worked or they wanted more of, or they felt like these three things really made me successful in high school, or these three things in high school really made me successful in college. And that will often be very structural programming outcomes. It may be other impacts as well, but that would definitely be one of them.
And as you said, so that means that this is pedagogically, but also how those kind of pedagogical structures like GATE may have affected socially. Thank you. Fantastic.
Dr. Mayberry, is there any intent to, in this survey, to look at some of the pathways and how those affect our high achieving students or deter other students from not becoming high achieving, meaning the on and off roads to rigorous coursework and where kids can get on and get off those paths?
Yeah, I mean, some of that's going to be, if we go forward with this, like some of that, what exactly will be defined as we work with Learner Center Collaborative. But I would expect once we clearly define the group of students that we're looking at, which we've kind of, we're talking more generally about that group right now. Looking at their course pathways, looking at the courses they took, how well they did in them, will definitely would likely, any kind of research I've done in this area, that's always something you're trying to look at, right? Like, what did this pathway work? Was there enough options? Did this confirm their growth, or did this, in some cases, maybe it didn't work and some of these students were struggling later on because it wasn't the right pathway and we have to rethink that. So yeah, I would assume the pathways would come up in this as well.
That comment is one of the questions I had. A student who starts off as a very high achieving student and then it drops off, might drop off in middle school, might drop off in high school. Would there be any interest in that? I mean, would those students be surveyed also?
Yeah, I think ideally you're looking at bands of students. So there might be a group of students that were successful in middle school. Where did that take them? They were maybe not successful is the right word, but would have been identified as high achieving under the definition we create. Where did that lead to them? Ones that were in high school, where did that lead them to in college or career or wherever they went? So looking at those bands, so that was something that would come out of that.
Another question I had is sort of when Dr. Marcheski mentioned GATE, because we sometimes pay so much attention to the academic, but not the talented part. And so would this also be interested in students who are showing really high achievement in what would be a talent area, whether it's art, music, but maybe they're not very high achieving in the academic areas? And I think that's interesting, but I don't know whether this would go that far as saying you're not high achieving overall with everything that you tackle, but it's segmented.
Yeah, I would say when you're thinking through the talent lens, like that's where we want to lean on our expert researchers. So they would this is how it's typically defined in these types of research studies. If we're talking whether that's, art or music or whatever it is, that there's some clear ways that they would define those ones that maybe they're not doing as well in a different class, traditional academic classes, but they have an excel and talent side. We'd want to lean on them. Or other research institutions, because the research has been done in these areas, obviously not with our students, but I know with other schools. So I think that would be an important piece to look at, and the test that our students take to be identified for GATE. I mean, it's really measuring visual spacing, right? And so kids that are in that typically 95th percentile, sometimes the 92 to 95 percentile. So that's not always indicative of a student getting really good grades. So that's why clearly defining that will be one of the first important steps that we do.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please?
Moved.
Is there any further discussion?
Yes. Sorry. I think this is really valuable. It will help kids reflect, which we want them to do, on the path they're taking, the classes, how it's working out for them. But I also think that a really effective way to deal with this is really through drama. I was lucky enough to be at a conference where Leslie Odom Jr., who played Aaron Burr in Hamilton, was the keynote speaker. And he spoke about drama being the very best way to learn empathy. If you're playing a character that has been abused, or have a parent, brother, or sister with special needs, or is afraid about being different, when you play that character, you become that person. And when you speak her words, you magnify your own understanding. And research shows that participants in the arts not only have better school attendance, which we're looking for, higher achievement in academic subjects, which we're looking for, but another thing we're really looking for is the arts have really helped social and emotional well-being for students, especially as they continue to recover from the COVID pandemic. And so I am not opposed to hiring this group, but I think there are other ways we could go also that would help students, that there's research for, that would help them more immediately.
I just wanted to make one other important point. I really like that we're looking at the post-graduation cohort of students, because I think, especially with this subset of students, it'd be really interesting to know if all that really hard work, I'm looking at our student board members, is worth it. If they get to college and they feel like they're still were really successful and that they're thriving, I think a lot of the work that was done with Challenge Success was built off some of those kids not thriving and really falling off the wagon in college, and either not being successful in that period of their life. And we definitely don't want to do everything we can and have these really high achieving students and put them into college and have them failing. So I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, and I just want to add that I know this is covered, but I think it's really important to think about the social dimensions of this. So I'm just underscoring that. I think it can be very complicated for kids who are designated as GATE and for kids who are really close to being GATE and not designated as GATE. I'm not sure why we make those distinctions, and I'm not trying to question it here because that's in your camp, but I think it's, I'm just underscoring that I'm really glad we're doing it. And I hope that this will give us an opportunity to think about those distinctions and what it means for an elementary school child who's in 4th grade and who works really hard and like misses this thing by 1 point and then is told that the person sitting next to them is GATE and they're not. And like, I understand why GATE programs exist, but I wonder if there's other ways to do that. And I hope that the questions will allow both parents and kids to kind of think about the social dimensions of it. Yeah, so thank you.
I just kind of want to add on to what the member said, is I think I was one of those students that was like 1 point off on the GATE test. And I did feel like there was a big social divide between like the kids who were GATE and weren't, even though it was like a very small, like 1 or 2 points off. And so again, I'm really interested in what the survey will result in, showing like those social differences. I think that's something important. Instead of like trying to bring people apart, I think bringing them together is more important. And I think when we like designate like, oh, you're GATE, you have the opportunity to go in this program, but other people don't, I think that kind of creates a little bit of a barrier and like access to opportunity. When GATE students get some opportunities in elementary school, I remember that other students weren't allowed with. And I think that kind of creates a little bit of a barrier. And so seeing what the survey yields and capitulates could be really, interesting to see how does that affect students, as they also progress through the school system.
Thank you
I
for your
think-
insights. I think I have witnessed that myself over the years with students feeling like, oh, I'd like to do that, but they didn't get a chance to do that, whatever the thing was, because it was for the GATE students, and it does create a barrier. So that's a good point. And I'm sure that will come up in this, because I think it's a good point, Dr. Macheski, about the social. And not to come off as critical of what happens in our district because we have a lot of high achieving students, but every year when we have the promotion and the graduation ceremonies and all the kids with the highest stand up, and I always think those other kids that are sitting there, how do they feel? Because it's, I mean, that's part of life and we have to learn that that's, you know, but it's still, for me personally, I've always struggled with that. So I'll be really curious to see what this shows as far as how much of an impact those issues have with kids.
Well, on the flip side too, it's both. The research will show that kids who are designated as GATE often struggle more because they've been designated as GATE, right? They're told at a really young age that they have these abilities and so it's very hard for them to go through life and sometimes come up short. So the research cuts both ways. I think it's
A
multidimensional.
lot of pressure.
Yes.
I really appreciate all my board member colleagues' thoughts and Carter's also. I was just going to add that when kids find out in third grade, they're so young, they think, oh, I didn't make it into GATE. I can never be a lawyer like I wanted to. I mean, they set limits for themselves because they didn't, which is very dangerous also.
Any further discussion? Are you ready to vote? Any further discussion? Okay, student vote? Thank you. Board members all in favor? Aye, opposed, carries 401. Next is action item 9 under superintendent, which is approval of July 27th, 2023 board meeting minutes, which we do separately when there's a member absent. Do we have any comment cards on this?
None received.
Thank you. Dr. Gloria?
It was the July 27th meeting, so Member Perry will need to abstain.
Thank you. We have a motion, please.
Moved.
Any questions or discussions on this? Thank you. Student vote? Thank you. All board members all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. Carries 311. Is that right? Or 302? No, we have an extension in there. 301. Okay. So we leave Jim out of that as well. Thank you. We move now to our consent calendar. 10. Do we have public comment on consent?
Nope, none received.
Thank you. Are there any items that board members wish to pull?
Just for discussion.
Yeah, if you want to discuss, we need to pull it.
Item S.
Pardon me? You don't?
S.
S,
Item
sorry, I
S.
just didn't pick that up. S. Is it just a question or a discussion? We have to pull it. Any other items board members wish to pull? Then we need a motion to approve items C through X without S.
Moved.
Okay. Kelly and Joan, right. And so we just, there's no discussion on consent. I think I'm speaking to Carter, and I think he already knows that. He seems well informed. So we have a student vote. Board members all in favor? Aye, opposed? Carries 401. 401, yeah. And now we move to Member Perry's item S. We have a motion to put that on the floor. Are you moving? Are you moving to put on the, okay. Second,
Second.
thank you. Go ahead.
Success returning school program for Thurston in the high school. I think we have done a lot of wonderful things through Challenge Success. I think we could learn some new things, but by contracting with somebody else and having somebody else come in with other ideas. I have appreciated a lot that they've done. I've had a hard time with the timing and scheduling, knowing that the high school students have had a different schedule every year for 6 years, and I guess they've helped us with that. But we always say this is for the best for our students. We've really evaluated it, and then we do another one the next year and it's the same. So it's taking away trust. And also the issue with timing and having, for instance, changing the high school schedule from about 4 hours and 10 minutes per class to 3 hours and 10 minutes per class. The first semester, so much shorter. And then also expecting the same amount of material to be covered and thinking that this is not going to cause stress for our students. We were told that we would get information from the students who were part of before we had stopped before the winter holidays, and students who experienced having finals 3 weeks after winter holidays and what a difference it made. And I didn't see the results of those studies. I don't know that having students not be able to travel and see their families before Christmas is, if that's a good thing. Just the way we've packed everything in, I don't know if that's best for students. And that I know is one of the things that came from Challenge Success. I know that they did a lot of great parent education and worked a lot on project and problem-based learning, which is really good. But I would like to see our staff exposed to something else.
I'm assuming that your comments are basically directed to the paragraph here in the description where it mentions that they're going to assist in the design and integration, and the first one listed is timing and scheduling. Is that the foundation of your concern? That they were providing something that you disagreed with?
In the paragraph before that, one of the things that says support is designing and integrating timing and scheduling.
Right, that's what I was just
Yeah.
reading, that one. Okay, because at first I wasn't following where you were coming from as far as the schedules at the high school affecting us using Challenge Success. But you're feeling that they were involved in that as far as more than the site. Okay, any other discussion on this?
I still think this is a worthwhile contract to enter into. I think at some point, our site administrators or our instructional services might say, like, they're not producing interesting research, they're not producing useful suggestions. We've learned all we could learn at the conference, and we've gotten our full value out of the partnership. But especially because our middle school is new to the program, joining in 2021. And I think some of the work that's happened since 2021 at the middle school level is phenomenal and driven by some of the energy and the enthusiasm, the ideas that come out of this group. So I still support the work with Challenge Success. I still think that the School of Education at Stanford is doing an amazing job. I think that our demographics of our student population need this type of work to keep us all centered on what's important for students. I think it'd be easy to go away from it and realize that we can overload our students in our really high achieving culture that we're at. So I see it a little bit differently. Like at this point, it's a really nice partnership to keep us on track with not overloading students, or at least having some of the research that might provide some data points on what some of the costs and benefits are to that. So as we kind of go forward with the vision for our district. I hope that makes sense.
I'd like to comment on kind of what Member Perry said as well. I think, Challenge Success, like how they're affecting our scheduling and stuff, like sometimes that's difficult for students, but I also think, students are resilient and we're learning new things constantly. And I think that's part of what Challenge Success is. It's like, we're learning new things. And as we learn those new things, we have to implement them at the school sites. So actually, like, I appreciate, Soren used to run Challenge Success at the high school, I know, and I worked with him a little bit, even though I was in middle school. And I'm speaking to, I think it's like a great program to continue at the middle school level. I think it'd be something interesting to implement there. And I think I understand like the concerns that Member Perry brings up, is that those are valid, that they've made a lot of changes to the schedule of the high school, which at times can be difficult for the students. But I think overall for the students, like, we're resilient and we can, adapt to the different things that, they're recommending. And I think overall those recommendations that they bring are valuable, because I think, this new schedule this year will be valuable for students and important. Thank you.
Just a point of clarification, they don't dictate our schedule. They simply provide research around what best practices might exist. And I think the term student schedule is being applied only to the Bell schedule, and it's actually not just the Bell schedule. It's about the pace of the student day. It's about transition times and you know, how do you format tutorial to be more impactful for students? How do you have practices and policies related to homework and expectations outside of the school day? That's all based in the research around youth development. So I know it's they did not, and you know, Sound Success was not at the table when the principal at the high school was working with his staff and students to talk about schedules over the years. We recognize we've had, you know, changes in the Bell schedules over the years, but it's been based on student feedback and student need. And again, I want to be just real clear. Challenge Success is not sitting at the table telling us what schedule we need to have as a school district. So it's part of their framework. There's other pieces to that framework as well. But the supportive schedule and use of time is really an all encompassing around how we impact students. So
The other thing I like, so Member Perry, I'm always interested in the research that's coming out of them because I find them to be one of the kind of cutting edge voices in education. So like if you look back there in their peer reviewed journals where Challenge Success was an author, they had in a peer reviewed journal in 2022, A Caring Climate that Promotes Belonging and Engagement. They had another in a peer reviewed journal, Making Time for Wellbeing, also out in 2022, Easing the Stress at Pressure Cooker Schools. So I think if I start as a board member to see that fall off, where the quality of their research and the topics that their key players are writing about maybe aren't in line with our vision for the district, then I might say, maybe this isn't the right partnership anymore, but it all seems really spot on with what we want for our students, what I want for our students.
My other question is, it seems like this is already in place for next year. Is that correct?
This
For
is
the for Thurston and the high school?
well, they would like to use this. Obviously we have to have this approved in order to go to the conference. So this item, the primary purpose of this is to send teams up there to go to their annual conference, which is really important for all the things that you've been talking about. And that if you think through staffing just alone, there's shifts in staffing, right? Like we've had 2 middle school principals in the last couple of years. We've had a new high school assistant principal. You have teachers that are taking on different roles and leaderships depending on where they are in their career. They may have been running the first persons at the high school working on this 5 years ago, and they've shifted and handed off to someone else. So it's really good to have them go there and engage for a few days in this type of research and what it is and what the impacts might be and how it looks on all things, not just scheduling. And that's really the main purpose. And then obviously we have access to a lot of the stuff that they're doing so we can look at it and learn and apply some of it. So that's the main purpose for this, is really just this fall conference that they want to go to with their teams.
I agree that they've done a lot of valuable things for our students in our district. It's not that. I just don't want us to stop looking for other things.
I'm very supportive of Challenge Success. I have been from the start. I think it was, and we've had good reports from students and parents over the years with the information that they bring in. As Member Osborne pointed out, I mean, Stanford is known for their research. And I would think, you know, they continue to look at the education and youth and the issues. And I mean, I see the articles that different people that are involved in their research put out in some very interesting topics and topics that really would make you think. And so I see it as still valuable. And again, I would trust that if our leadership teams, if our site principals, if they see it falling off, that they would certainly be concerned with finding something else. We don't want to, for me, I don't want to see too much get fragmented as far as a new thing coming in and does it really meet our needs? To me, this still meets our needs. Student comment or thank you. Any other discussion?
I have one other question. Is there a cost breakdown between the public speaker that comes in to do the family engagement event and then the fall conference? And then if there's any other ancillary services, I don't know if we have any of those in this contract, but is it like 40-60, 50-50, 10-90? And you guys can follow up with that if it's not readily available. The total is 18,600.
Yeah, I don't have the breakdown here, but I can talk to Dr. Keller and break that off. And so what the cost is for someone to come in, the person that comes in and speaks in person. I can put that in an upcoming update.
I have no other questions, President Vickers.
In favor?
Board members on favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries 401. Thank you. We have several items, more than several, in the government section, section 11. Do we have public comment on this, either individual items or in total? No?
And on policy in the
We're not to the bylaws yet, so and that's okay.
that's okay.
Just,
President
um,
Vickers, we have up through the 1000s and 11A.
it's section, first is A, second reading and approval of policies in the zeros and the 1000 series.
Okay. And so for our member of the public,
She'll
Well-
wait till we get to the E, number E is the bylaws.
E in 9000s. Okay, great. No other speakers.
So we need, are we presenting this or just the second reading? So we need a motion then?
just second reading.
Motion and a second to approve these as a second reading.
Move approval.
Second?
Second.
Mhm. We shouldn't need any discussion since we brought them back as a second reading. Student vote? Thank you. Board members all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries 401. B is second reading and approval of board policies in the 4000 series. Again, a motion. Well, there isn't public comment. I guess I was thinking you're going to E, public comment on B.
No,
Thank you. Did you make a motion, John? Do we have a second? Thank you. Student vote? Thank you. Board opposed? Carries. C, second reading and approval of board policies in the 5000 series. Public comment.
no,
Thank you. May I have a motion, please? For student vote.
In favor?
Thank you. Board members, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries 401. D, second reading and approval of board policies in the 6000 series. Public comment.
none,
Motion, please. Student vote.
In favor?
Thank you. Board members, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries 401. E, second reading and approval. Oh, did I skip D? No, I did. We just did D, right? Second reading and approval of board bylaws in the 9000 series, and we do have public comment on this.
okay, come on up. And just tell us your name, if you would.
Hi, I'm Gwen McNallen. I live in Laguna Beach, but I also am president of a exchange organization called STS Foundation. So I work with J1 High School Student Exchange Program all over the US. We place students in high schools, public high schools, all over the United States, and work closely with State Department. And possibly this has been addressed because I apologize. Wasn't able to see the board bylaws that you were approving tonight. I couldn't find a copy. But I'm here to voice my strong support to eliminate the $20,000 tuition fee that currently is in the bylaws to charge exchange students to attend Laguna Beach High School. As a J1 visa program, it is a people-to-people diplomacy program by the U.S. Department of State. It's completely separate from the immigration branch, which is the F1 visa, which you do have to charge tuition. That's requirement. And you have paid families. This is a volunteer family. This is a volunteer school, guest of the school. We have joint letters from the Department of Education. I forgot his name right now, Cordova, as well as Blinken in support of these really important programs. As a J1 visa exchange program, they are the strongest people-to-people diplomacy program that protects American security because it is bringing people together from other worlds, other countries, and into the United States. So it's super important. And I'm really hoping that we can reduce that. We used to place many kids here. And until the tuition was added, it was about 4 years ago. And so since then, we haven't been able to have any exchange students at Laguna Beach High School because nobody can afford that tuition to come on program. So that's my plea. And I hope that it's been removed and lifted. I'm not sure if I can get comment about that, because I can't find the actual policies that you're voting on tonight.
Thank you, okay,
Good.
if you can wait a few minutes, then you'll hear some
You bet.
comments about
Thanks.
that. Thank you. We have a motion on the bylaws, please. Student vote. Board members all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, did you guys vote? Carries 401. We have 11F, request for approval of date change for the September board meeting. Dr. Valoria?
Yes, we have a potential staff challenge on that day. And we were hoping and requesting the board to shift the date. I know it's a challenge to do this, but I recognize it's going to be a very probably busy agenda. And Ms. Weber and possibly myself are going to be out of town. And we wanted to see if the board would consider moving it to the 21st.
Have any questions on this?
Dr. Relay, have you talked with Member Kelly since he's not present here about whether he's available that date?
She did reach out to everybody. I think he was the one we hadn't heard back from yet. But she did request information from everyone. He just hadn't responded. She just texted me. He's available.
So
She's, I think, on the computer, so she just won't say anything.
we do need a
So-
motion to make
Could-
this change
Could you just repeat the dates that we're changing it to and
from the
so we all know?
14th, Thursday, the 14th, Thursday, the 21st.
Okay, so I have no meeting. If we approve this motion, we'll have no meeting on the 14th.
Correct.
We'll have a meeting on the 21st, which is still a Thursday, and
Yes.
Dr. Kelly is available since he's not in the room to say yes or no. And then we'll also have a meeting the following week on the 28th.
And that's a study session
Study
for
session.
facilities. Yes.
That is just the study session. Okay. And you anticipate the agenda for the 21st will be lengthy.
It'll be opening of schools report and summer school report and yes, and we'll have a month's worth of material to cover. So yeah, it'll, as typical September meetings will be a busier meeting.
And it was really regarding the preparation for that meeting, correct?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
preparation and actual execution of the meeting. So
Any other questions? Do we get a motion?
Move.
Thank you.
approval.
Student vote. Thank you. Board members all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries 401. Thank you. 11G, support of the Orange County Sustainability Decathlon. Dr. Gloria?
So if you recall, we had Mr. Smoller from the Orange County Sustainability Decathlon here at one of our previous meetings. I think it was the last meeting in July. He's requested to use the Laguna Beach Unified School District logo on his event flyer. I didn't feel comfortable. Obviously, he came to the board, requested obviously your support. If the board is in support, we will give him the logo to add as the district is supporting of his event. Beyond that, I think he's soliciting, trying to get support from the city to pay for buses for kids to go to the events and that sort of thing. Obviously, we can't make a commitment to require our staff to go to events like that. It's a field trip. So if there's interest, we will obviously support it. But is this of interest of the board to have our logo in support of this program?
Jason, is there any reason that it would be a bad idea for the board to do this?
No, it just is it was kind of an odd request the way it was coming to us, and I felt like it was appropriate. The board heard about his interest. So because it's kind of a higher level, and I think we have, there's state senators are endorsing and that sort of thing, I figured it would be important for the board to ultimately, if we're going to put our name on it, for you guys to say, we believe that, yes, we want to support it versus, adding my simple name to it, right? It's just, if it's the district that really wanted the board, he came to you seeking your support. So.
Do we have, I know the school year hasn't started yet, but do we have any interest from any of our relevant secondary teachers or clubs? Do we sense that we would actually be involved in some way?
I think we will.
It's a really cool event.
It's a
Don't get
really
me-
cool event. And I think just from the fact that it's a cool event, we'll share it out. Obviously, Ms. Harward, our coordinator of environmental literacy, is aware. But yeah, we would, I can't say at this time, and I think sometimes people want commitments. This is a ways down the path. We are not sure what people will be doing around that time, so I wouldn't want to commit and say, yes, we're going to send people for sure. However, it's a pretty cool event and it's going to run, I think it runs over several days. It runs on a weekend as well. So we will definitely encourage people to attend. And I think, again, if the board takes a stance that says this is important and we want to endorse it, that would be part of what we send out to those who might be interested to say the board even endorsed us and thinks it's valuable.
Is this located at the fairgrounds or at the fairgrounds? And remind me when it is.
It's I have it up, Dr. Blair, it's October
Okay.
5th through the 15th. And President
That's a lot
Vickers,
of
it's
days.
20 college teams, many from California, others from across the world that are designing innovative homes, entering them into this contest that are powered by renewable energy. So I think as a board, if we believe that, climate change is clear, that we need solutions that address that and that education is one of the avenues, whether I think they have a high school entry,
I
a
think you
small high
mentioned
school
there was a
entry that
small
they're
high
trying
school
to start.
entry. So I think the goal is to transition this just from community colleges to getting maybe like ROPs, programs involved as well.
I thought it was really exciting project. I'm in favor of letting him use our logo. I know I went to something like this, maybe 10 years ago at UCI, but it was from different countries where they tried to design sustainable homes. It was great.
Do we have a motion on the floor? Motion, please. Any further discussion? No? Student vote? Thank you. Board members, all in favor? Aye, opposed? Thank you. Governance, next section, reporting. And we don't take public comment on board member reports. So any board member, you want to start? Member Osborne or?
Sure. I had 3 things to mention tonight. One was it was in our consent calendar, but on the school power lease. Thank you, Mr. Dixon, for redoing that. I know as the board representative to the school power organization, they're very happy with lease terms. They're very happy with Family Resource Center. They're going to be very happy with their newly remodeled space in the annex building. So thank you guys for working so collaboratively with that organization. I know they really appreciate the strong relationship they have with you guys. So thank you on that. Second, on facilities master planning, I have had a couple of very informal conversations with Sue and Bob on their site research over the summer for possible, I'm going to call it a pool dislocation spot or relocation spot. So I know that work is slow over the summer, but has been going on. And then lastly, the LEAD program and all of the summer school data that we got was just fantastic. So kudos to the team for giving the board kind of a window into what's happening. I know people think that schools close in the summer, but it's clear from those weekly reports that this district does not. Thank you.
Echoing on with that, I agree. The LEAD program and summer school, I got so many compliments from neighbors and people, students that live close to me, and kudos to everybody. Great job. I also met with a few community members about facilities, and one was a complaint because I guess we didn't understand we couldn't start construction at 6 a.m. But complaints were made and that's been fixed, so that's good. I was also surprised of the evidence that was brought up tonight, also that the pool is used so little on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, even during the spring, and wondered if there's a way we can meet with the city or the rec department and our own water people and see if we can get some more use for it, because that's a lot of time that's really not being used. And I met with some of these little art committees and I'll report back to them. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Very brief. kudos for the LEAD program, just so many comments. I knew like so many kids who did it. So thank you for a job well done. And I have only done a little bit of work on the facilities plan over the month, but I met with a member of Sensible Laguna and talked some about the questions that they continue to raise. And I also met with Alex Renagi about where the board is with all of this. So I look forward to the study session in September and you know, when we can continue to pursue some of those questions.
Thank you. I think we're doing such a service to our students with the summer programs. Since we know there's such a learning lag in the summer and traditional summer time off, and to see that we can offer so much, particularly in the way of enrichment, and that students are attending in large numbers. So we know that it's well received, and I think it's great. I think it's great that our schools basically don't close, because it, you know, it gives the students that when they're questing for that, we're meeting their need. And the other part of that is it is always busy at the schools with the team that you have on the facilities. And I was walking around tonight at Thurston, and it looks so ready, and it looks so good that it made me want to start picking leaves up off the asphalt over there. I mean, it just really looks fresh, and I've noticed that at the high school too, that they're just always working on something. And it takes a lot to keep up the school sites, and I'm very appreciative of how well we're taking care of them. And of course, that goes back to that first bond and our promise to the community that we would take, you know, better care of our facilities once they trusted us with that bond money. So there's just one other thing is that I know that from the city point of view, the city is working on assessing all of their facilities, everything they have in town and how those are being utilized. And that's an ongoing, just kind of getting started process for them. And I think until they tackle that and really identify what they have, it's going to be slow going as far as anything further with us. And so I think we just need to be patient, which is hard to do. Thank you. Dr. Gloria.
Just a reminder, so we are going to be discussing the Aliso property in closed session at a future board meeting. It is a closed session topic. So I recognize that the city has expressed interest in us having a discussion. I know they have some interest related to that property, as it was expressed to me, that they would love the board to extend the lease an additional 55 years, which would lock up the property for over 80 years. So something for the board for us to consider. We'll have it again, just working with legal counsel to provide an update to the board. But it will be a closed session item, just so I want to make you all aware. It won't be public. We won't be discussing it at the facilities workshop. In terms of, we did have previously in a board policy related to exchange program, we have been going back and forth specific with legal counsel on this topic, as well as some folks at the State Department level and trying to get the actual legal justifications that will allow us to bring back the waiving of the fees. And so we believe we're there. We just weren't able to get it on this agenda. But legal counsel is drafting up that so that we can bring that back for your consideration. So that will be probably at the September meeting, will be first draft for discussion. So
Dr. Valori, that's 6145.
6145.6.
Okay. And so we'll see that in September.
Yeah, you
again,
should
is it
see that in
correct?
September. We were trying to go back and forth with legal counsel on it, and it's just trying to find the regulation that clearly states that you can waive the fee. I know when you call the State Department, they will say, oh, you can waive the fee. But when you ask for the legal justification for it, it's been a little harder to get. I've had a couple phone calls out to folks trying to get the actual legal allowance that would protect the board from potentially being perceived as a gift of funds type of thing. So once we think we're close, we just have to kind of button it up, and we'll have that for your review. So.
Thank you. Did you get that? Thank you. Okay,
President Vickers, that has to come through because it went through a policy workshop, but it hasn't come back a first or second time.
It'll come back for a first read.
First
at the next
readings.
meeting. Yeah.
Yeah,
we pulled it. So
we'll see
first
it 2
read-
more times.
First
Right.
read, yeah. So you'll have a choice of first read next meeting, and you can pass the second read, or you can approve at that meeting. It's up to the board.
Thank you.
so that would be the September 21st meeting. Okay, thank you. So we need A motion that you finish your report. Okay. Motion to adjourn to our next regular meeting. Student vote. Thank you. Board members, all in favor? Aye, opposed, carries 401. Thank you.